Consider subscribing to Sunstone magazine at the registration desk as well. Your support goes directly to keeping symposiums and 40 years of thoughtful dialogue alive and sustainable. Don't forget to check out the bookstore in the ballroom, hosted by Benchmark Books. Consider purchasing a book or two to support Mormon studies and scholars. This is a 60-minute session, and we ask that both the audience and presenters keep within the framework of time so we can allow for the next session to start on time. I'm going to leave the intro to Dr. Carson Calderwood, who is a dentist and an undergraduate in evolutionary biology.
Thank you. All right, I think I'm going to stand just because I'm a lot more calm if I can move around and wiggle a lot. So I'll give my disclaimer in a little bit. I'm going to give disclaimer first. I'll give my intro in a little bit as part of the presentation, but at the end, if you can write down questions if you want as they come up to you. At the end, if we haven't, try and make sure we have time to do them. If you don't answer it, I'm gonna have my email and a link to where you can actually get the long form narrative of this, and you can send me questions if you want later on, or just grab me later on. So don't worry if we can't get to them. The problem I have is this I honestly wish I had 3 hours, and I did my first practice and it was like almost an hour and a half. I did cut out a bunch, did my second one and it was an hour. So I'm gonna have a really hard time trying to fit this in. So I'll go fast. It will be a little eclectic, but hopefully you get the conclusion from all of it. So basically, the purpose I have here is how emotions and thought processes are a natural result of our evolution and not direct communication from God. These are the points I'm going to try and show today. These emotions and thought processes make us prone to believing in a religion, and they also make it hard for us to walk away from a religion. So those are the three things I'm going to try and prove today. So like I said, write down your questions if you have them. So my background. First off, I was one of those Mormon kids who was fully committed, come from a long line of Mormons. To give you a quick example, in high school, I did my own family history research, took the names to the temple. I was writing my journal every night, reading my scriptures 30 hours a day, did a family home evening to tell my parents we got to stop watching radar movies. And so I was that annoying kid. And all that came from because I never got a witness that the church was true. And I thought it was because I wasn't trying hard enough. I wasn't worthy enough. And so I was just motivated more and more to try and do what I had to do to get it. Kind of a scrupulosity a little bit is what I kind of felt like I developed a little bit over trying to make this work. I would hear something and that if you pray, you'll get the witness, and it didn't happen. So basically this is my culmination of 30 years of research of why I didn't, personal research, why that didn't work out for me and what answers actually did work. My scientific background, I'm not a scientist, but I am a dentist and I don't hunt lions, in case you're wondering about that. I love evolution. I love biology. My senior thesis in my undergrad, it was on zoology, which is kind of like evolutionary biology is a better way to describe it. It was on evolution. It was the capstone class. So I've loved that and spent a lot of time researching that. And basically, this is just the convergence of these two backgrounds. So what is evolution? You probably all know about that. It's basically, just real quick, that we have random mutations in our genes that over time, certain mutations will be better adapted to a certain niche in the environment, and if you have those advantages, it's more likely your genes will be passed on, and then they're selected for over time, and that helps create the diversity we have in the world. It's the great unifying law of biology. It brings everything together. It's indisputable, and if it's too complex to really get into, but basically it's how we evolved as a communal species. We evolved, and this is what I'll go into a lot today. We have a lot of things in us and that make us want to be part of a tribe, that make it so that we're scared to leave a tribe, that we want to, we receive a lot of joy from being a part of a tribe. And that's kind of what I'll explain, and all that comes out through evolution. So what are emotions? Emotions, the best way to describe it, short and sweet, is they are neural impulses that move an organism to action. I'll give a couple examples here. Basically, there's a bunch of examples of different types of emotion, but think of two species. Think of species A that feels happy when it eats carbohydrates or fat. Species B that doesn't feel different no matter what it eats. Species A feels disgust if it sees rotting food. Species B doesn't have that emotion. Species A is obviously a lot more likely to eat the fat and carbohydrates and have more energy and survive, a lot less likely to eat the rotten food and get diseases, more likely to survive, where species B doesn't care, just eats whatever. And that's why how we evolved, to have the emotions that we'll have when we see a rotting food that can create some disgust in us, or when we see a cupcake, we can get excited about it. I'll give you a quick example. How does that make you guys feel? See that? It's a little freaky. There's actually been studies done where they'll show different objects to kids, little infants, and if it has the 4 legs on each side, it'll make it have unpleasant feelings. This is instinctive in us. We see something with 4 legs on each side, it bugs us. We see something with 3 legs, this isn't a great picture, it doesn't create that visceral response in us as much, and that's how we evolved to have those. So I'm going to go through 5 aspects of each emotion to help describe these. I'm going to description of the emotion, what it is, how it likely evolved in humans, examples of this in non-Mormons today, examples in Mormonism, and finally the problem with the Mormon position as I contrast those. So that's how I'm going to break down each one of these. I'm going to start off with the elevation response. Has anyone heard of this out of curiosity? Cool, awesome, a few people. Jonathan Haidt, who's like one of my heroes, who I'm actually going to try and get to come to Sunstone. I think I'll form a coup and get him to come here. I think that would be amazing. He's done a lot of research on this, and the elevation response is basically the positive emotional response you get when you see an act of social virtue. That's kind of one of the ways he describes. Seeing acts of compassion. You see that, and it makes you feel some good feelings. So, I'm going to try and show you guys a video real quick and see if we can get this to work here. The audio doesn't matter too much. Let me switch screens, sorry. There we go. So it has the text. Can you guys kind of see that at the bottom there? All right. I'll try and get the audio to play to the microphone here.
Somebody hit the lights right there. I think if you hit just the one.
How do you guys feel after watching that? Anybody feeling the Spirit? Yeah, it's pretty powerful, right? It's let me clear that. That's the elevation effect, and it's a pretty powerful emotion. Every time I watched that when I was at home, multiple times, it would bring tears to my eyes. Is that because those people are Mormon, or is it because they're Christian? They're obviously not. It is. It's what we felt was that elevation effect, and I forgot to say. My disclaimer that I'm actually probably going to offend a lot of people with this because it's going to. I come from a very agnostic background right now, and so I'm going to explain all this through a purely scientific background and not from a religious viewpoint. But I'll kind of come full circle to that at the end. So that growing up and feeling like seeing stuff like that, basically, is that the one true video of the internet? That's kind of the narrative that I got. If you feel those feelings, it's because God is telling you that this is true, and that if you read the Book of Mormon and feel that, it's because it's the one true book. And that created a lot of conflict in myself. I would feel those feelings when I would see described to me as the Spirit, when I'd see other people doing good things. I'd get down and pray, and I wouldn't feel anything praying about the Book of Mormon, praying about the church. There was even a couple of times where I'd read about Enos praying all day, and I set a timer, and I actually prayed for an hour. I did that twice in my life. Literally made myself stay on my knees and pray for an hour. I'm like, maybe if I do that, I'll get that witness. And it still didn't happen. So, oops, sorry, I got the wrong slide here. Get back on track. All right, that's not working off the speed through. So, examples of this in non-Mormons today. You watch the show Extreme Home Makeover. They pulled the truck away. It like always brings you to tears. You see all this good stuff happening for this family in need. It just makes you tear up, makes you feel this emotion, makes you feel these feelings of the Spirit. And so we see it all around us in today. Examples of it in Mormonism. We're told this is the Spirit confirming, like I said, that what we're seeing from God. The problem with this is that we can feel these from when we have works of fiction. That wasn't a true life experience. That was a video that someone made to get across the idea of giving is good, to encourage other people to give. You watch that, it makes you feel those feelings. So we can't use those feelings as a tool to discern truth. We could potentially use that to discern goodness, but not necessarily truth. Sorry, I'll skip through the spider quickly here so I don't cause too much stress. I don't have to leave again, so that shouldn't get out of whack there. Okay. My history on this is I watched the movie Independence Day in high school. And you guys remember that with Will Smith, and the whole world came together to fight the aliens, and I had one of the most profound spiritual experiences of my life when the whole world came together, and I was like, I was all emotional watching this movie about aliens, and it kind of tripped me out. And that kind of set me on this path of wondering, why am I feeling these different emotions? All right, almost caught up. All right, fruits of the Spirit, that's what we're feeling. Okay, other people feel these feelings. There's a video I was going to show, but we don't have time, where it goes through and shows people bearing their testimonies of why their church is true. And none of them are Mormons, but they're using all the words that we're familiar with. That I know God told me that I felt this burning in my bosom. I saw a Muslim saying I felt burning in my bosom, and I know every fiber of my being. And you're like, what? That's so Mormon. But it's a guy with his whatever hat they call that, a Muslim guy, bearing the truth, his testimony about Muslim religion. And that caused a lot of irritation in me, having that tension. So there was a study done called the Most Correct Religion Survey, where they interviewed people who said that their religion was one where God will tell you if your church is true. So of those people they surveyed, 82% said they had received an answer. God had told them that their church was true. 73% said that not only did they receive that answer, but it was a very sure answer. They were very sure that God told them it was true. There's 22 different religions participated in and none of them were Mormon. So the point of all this is a very universal thing. It happens in all these other religions. They're experiencing the same things as we do. And I think growing up in the bubble that I grew in, it created a lot of, I thought we were the only ones, and I didn't have that insight to know that other people are doing the same thing. So the next emotion is gratitude. Gratitude is the feeling you feel when you're the recipient of that good deed that makes you feel the elevation effect. So positive emotion, there was a study done on some sorority girls where they gave them different acts of kindness between the sorority girls, and the stronger they had a greater response of gratitude when they felt like the person was more caring in the gift that they gave. So the more you feel, the more someone cares about you and does something for you, the more gratitude you're going to feel. Why did we evolve to have that? To be that communal species, it's you might want to be selfish and go and hoard all of the food for yourself, but if you go and give it to someone who's in need, instead of being selfish, you're kind of hurting yourself a little bit. But by giving that to the other person, having the good feelings that come from that, making you want to do it, they'll reciprocate. We're all helping each other, and it builds this synergistic effect that us as a tribe are a lot stronger than the dudes that are out there doing it on their own. So that synergy is what gave us an evolutionary advantage and made us more of a tribal species. So we're all very familiar with this. We feel gratitude. We see that all the time, so I'm actually going to skip that. Mormonism, it tells us this is a part to becoming the community of Zion, that we do these things to help come together as one people. We feel these good feelings as we come together as one. The problem with the Mormon position on this is that it's felt the exact same feelings and emotions by non-Mormons when they're in their tribe, when they're in their community, in their church, and they're doing good things. They're all experiencing, again, the same things. Despite that, the gift of the Holy Ghost problem is now that I've been excommunicated and no longer have the gift of the Holy Ghost, I shouldn't be feeling these feelings as much as I used to before. But I actually feel more, ironically, because I've kind of let go of some of those tensions, and I just try and be good to good people for goodness sake. And I actually feel a lot of happiness, more happiness in my life. Converts, I've talked to converts who converted, who was really looking forward to that gift of the Holy Ghost, and they felt like there was no difference in the feelings, the frequency, the quantity or quality of the feelings they were feeling before their gift and after. So I'm going to move on now to subconscious intuition. This is a little complicated. I'm talking about kind of the brain. So we have our subconscious and we have our consciousness. And the other people I'm going to offend, since Chelsea walked in and reminded me of this, besides the members, are the scientists, because I'm going to not explain this 100% accurately. And there's differing views too. I'm going to pick the views that kind of work with what I've got here. So basically, the way I like to think of it is you have all these subconscious processes going around. You're noticing. My subconscious is seeing all of you in the room. It's seeing the wall. It's noticing the light. It's noticing the cobwebs in the corner. It's noticing all these things, but it's passing up to my frontal cortex the important things. What's the facial expression on my wife? Is she liking this or not? Am I doing a good job? Has it been 15 minutes? All those things my consciousness is aware of. That you guys are people. You're in chairs. All that tangible stuff. Those are conscious ideas. We'll have subconscious gut feelings. So I'm going to break this up and do two things that describe both of these intuition decision makings that we have, and how the Mormon Church says that is from the Spirit. So basically, this is from a really old part in our brains, the emotions that are involved in this. If you poke a lizard with a stick that hurts, it's going to try and run away. We have things that have been around for a long time, and our subconscious is a really old part of our brain. Our forebrain, our consciousness is more, where we make decisions. What separates us a little more from some of the other animals is a more modern evolution on that. So I'm going to call a conscious idea an epiphany, where your subconscious may be working on things and it puts together some connections, and all of a sudden you have an aha moment. That's an epiphany you might have. If your subconscious is working on things and you don't really necessarily have a fully conscious idea, but you feel something emotionally in your emotions, I'm going to call that your gut feeling. And we're going to talk about that. So, as a dentist, this comes up a lot. I have people come in freaked out all the time. They had this isn't a good picture, but say some guy, I have this guy literally happened, 40-year-old man, really successful financially, super amazing guy, and he was freaking out for a cleaning. he's like, I know you're not going to hurt me. And he's all shaking and he's like tearing up. And he's like, I just had a tooth taken out when I was a little kid, and the dentist didn't numb me up, and he said I was, told me shut up, and he pulled it out. And I have always been afraid of the dentist ever since. That's locked into his, his limbic system. That's his fear center. He's going to have that happen always. He'll have that. He can't get over that. That gut feeling fear is always going to be there. Sometimes that gut feeling can come from past experiences. Sometimes it can come from our subconscious noticing things. If we walk in, we're not fully aware of the cobwebs in the corner, we might feel a little bit of a scary feeling because we know spiders are going to be in there. Even though we're not thinking there's spiders in here, we'll have an uneasy feeling. So that's kind of how science will explain those. Examples of it in Mormonism, if a lot of times you're told it's the good versus evil spirit. If you're feeling a bad feeling when you walk into a room, it might be your subconscious noting the spider webs in the corner. The church will tell you that maybe it's the spirit isn't there, and you're feeling a lack of the spirit, and that's where that negative feeling is coming from. It's not coming from your brain or your body, it's coming from the spirit outside. Conscious idea. If you have an epiphany all of a sudden, you put two and two together, it's the spirit telling you that, giving you, whispering to your mind. And if, actually I'll get into the second and the problems with it. The problem is that gut feeling is being guided by the spirit. If you're having a gut feeling that you need to do something, you really feel like you need to go over there and do that. You need to knock on that door. That's the spirit telling you that you need to go knock on that door, instead of maybe something that house looks, you see kids in the window and you see they're more a family and more likely to accept the message. So problems with this position is, how can you tell the difference between your spirit and your brain? That's a problem I struggled with forever. Am I having this idea? Do I need to go back and shut the oven off because that idea just popped in my mind? Or did I leave the oven on and the spirit's telling me so my house doesn't burn down? I can't, it's so hard. I could never differentiate between the two, and I thought it was me, it was broken, that I was a poor spiritual understander, or so however you want to call that. I just couldn't, it didn't work for me, and I felt like like a bad person for that. Like I wasn't trying hard again. I'm not referring here to actually really strong and powerful spiritual experiences like vision and stuff. I'm actually going to talk about that later. I'm talking more about those feelings and impressions you get. Similar to the elevation effect, everyone is experiencing these gut feelings, these promptings, impressions in all religions. And maybe it's God helping all of us, or maybe it's from our body, but it definitely isn't, in my experience, any special gift that we have from being in this church. Confirmation bias, I'm going to talk about that a little later as well. So let's go back to the person who got the traumatic experience as a kid where the tooth got pulled out. They have a cleaning today. They need to go get their cleaning, but they have this bad gut feeling. Is the spirit telling them they shouldn't go because there's a piano that's going to drop on them on their way and crush them and they're going to die? Or is it just the emotional response of the fear happening? Which is it? Is it God's warning sign? So they don't go. They decide something bad is going to happen. I feel something bad. They don't go. They miss finding out about that cavity they had on their x-ray, and then it turns into a root canal. So instead of getting the cleaning, now they need the cleaning and the root canal and the crown, and they have all the pain associated with that. So sometimes if we go with our gut feelings, it's not a good thing. Sometimes it can be. So just go to your dentist and it'll all work out well in the end. All right, so unique and powerful spiritual experiences. How am I doing on time, by the way?
7 after. So you have a half an hour at least.
Okay, awesome. We're going well. So this is a part that's really fascinating to me about really powerful spiritual experiences, because I'd have the little spiritual experiences when I see good things happen, but I would never have anything powerful. I had a buddy in his mission. He talked about one time during a discussion, he felt like his spirit came out of his body and he looked down and could see the discussion happening, and it happened when everyone is feeling the spirit really powerfully. And I was so jealous of that experience. I'm like, why can't I have that? I'm trying so hard. My mission, I decided I'm going to be the best missionary. It's hard not to cuss there. I'm going to be the best missionary ever. I'm going to work so hard. I'm going to never sleep in a minute. I'm going to actually stay up late, even though I'm going to try extra hard. And when I go, and I served in Argentina, when you go home, they let you go through the temple on your way home from the mission. And I'm like, when I put my sacrifice on the altar, if I don't get that experience before, that's when it'll happen. I know it will. And when I went through, not only did I not feel the spirit in the temple there, I felt a very awkward, weird feeling. And that's when I became basically agnostic. I decided if I haven't had that experience now, it's not going to happen. And not only did I lose my testimony in the church, I lost my testimony in God at that point. I like to say I'm agnostic. I don't like to say atheist because it could be out there. We don't know everything. Maybe there is. I'm a hopeful agnostic. That's what I like to say. But I never had any of those experiences, and that's what led me to this wondering about all this. So there's this chemical called DMT. It's found naturally in humans. We produce it in our brain. It's found in many animals. It's found in plants. It's just all throughout the plant and animal kingdom. There's a physician, let me get his name here. Dr. Rhys Strassman, he wrote a book on it. He gave 400 doses to 60 volunteers and had them document the experiences they had. It's hallucinogenic. It's like psilocybin, LSD, mescaline, where it makes you have these experiences, which is a funny story. In the MTC, some guy, I don't remember who he was, he gave a talk and he's like, if you've had drugs before, that's a counterfeit spiritual experience. He like pounded the pulpit and he said it really like intense, and I was like, holy cow. So I've never had a spiritual experience, but I could maybe have a counterfeit one. Like that really struck a chord with me strong. And I have more stories about that I can share later. About it's this, keeping that in mind as I read about this book about DMT experiences, as he would inject this drug into people, they would have experiences. I'm going to list them up here, and we'll go and kind of go through them. It'll be kind of small to get them all on there. People would have experiences where they'd feel separation of mind from the body, like my friend on his mission, what he felt. They'd feel a sense of wonder or awe, an undeniable certainty of the experience, where they would use the phrase, it was more real than real. That's what a lot of the participants experienced. The setting that they set it up in, they first were in a loud, noisy part of the hospital, and people wouldn't have as strong of experiences, so they got to a quiet experience. They had to meditate and think ahead of time. It created a stronger experience, DMT experience for them. They'd have insights that would come together, both network their brain better, and they'd have new insights into their life and stuff like that. They'd be tearful a lot, lots of increased emotion. It's enhanced with music, meditation, prayer, fasting, isolation, ritual, all enhance that DMT experience. They would feel extraordinary joy, a sense of timelessness, like being eternal, like more real than real was big. It's naturally released during our sleep cycles, and if you ever have that when you wake up from a dream and you're like, holy cow, like I really thought my wife left me. It's some dream and you're freaked out because you really thought it was real. That is an effect of the DMT a little bit that's released during our sleep cycle. We'll have blinding white lights experiences, encounter with demonic and angelic entities, sensations of being lifted up physically, tree of life visions. Lots of them reported that, and none of them were Mormon in the study. That's fascinating to me. They would remember the experience clearly, powerfully for years, and it would last with them. And actually, last night, Dr. Ferguson talked about a little bit how for 6+ months, people would think back on the experience and they'd feel happy about, and it would make them positive, make them feel really good having had that experience. So, conclusions about this. Considering that list of DMT effects and how they parallel spiritual experiences that we hear about in the Mormon experience, we have to ask ourselves, are these spiritual experiences from God or from the brain and chemicals? And some people feel the DMT experience more when they get injected the same dosage, they would respond differently. And my kind of theory, the conclusion I came to is I just don't produce it much. Like if my wife and I both had various surgeries on my leg and stuff, and if I take narcotics like Vicodin, Percocet, I feel super happy. I love everybody, and I just want to go hug everybody. She gets sick to her stomach and nauseous. Just the same drug, same amount, totally different effect. So my conclusion is that people like me who never had the spiritual experience, I either don't produce as much of the DMT in my brain, it doesn't affect me the same, and then others that do, they maybe just produce more and it affects them more, and that's why they can have those powerful spiritual experiences and people like me don't. So the point being, if you beat yourself up for decades and years like I did about not being broken, not being good enough, trying hard enough, it's not your bad. And that was what's hard, why I could finally come to the conclusion, if you know our background a little bit, about 2 years ago, I finally said I don't think the church is true. Despite almost 20 years of thinking that way, it was so hard to get to the point where I could feel like I was right, my family, my friends, the 12 apostles, all these people I respect were wrong. And that, I just didn't have the confidence to make that decision until I had researched and everything pointed to this as the fact for me. And that's how I was able to come to the conclusion and how I was able to step away. Because it's hard to have that effect when you have people talking about having these spiritual experiences and confirming it. Their testimonies to you of these amazing experiences that prove that the church is true. All right. And just real quick, I think that those who were more likely to have those type of experiences got pulled into the religion as time has gone on, like an evolutionary effect, basically. They're more likely to be in the evolution, have the kids that have that as well, and pass it on. And there are a lot more chemicals in our bodies than just DMT that make us feel this. One thing I forgot to say earlier, actually, a little teaser, I'll let that sit there, is that we can induce a lot of these emotions in people. We can give someone an oxytocin spray and make them feel more loving and connection to the person that they're with, no matter who they are. If they're a stranger, they'll just feel the love. We can do electric probes into the brain to make people feel these. They're getting to where they can use some magnetic resonance. That's not the right term, but you can externally stimulate these emotions in people, showing that side. So this is a little trippy, pardon the pun, on this next part I'm going to go into about Joseph Smith parallels to the DMT that I was just talking about. So a lot of people have asked themselves, why did so many amazing, like kind of crazy, but so many amazing, powerful spiritual experiences that so many people had, why did they stop when he died? You know, what was so magic about Joseph Smith that made that happen? Was he just so close to God that being around him helped others have those spiritual experiences? And I was talking with someone else recently that that was the last straw they let go of the churches, and they never had an answer for it. But what kept them in is reading these early accounts of so many people having, like in the Kirtland Temple, everyone's seeing angels. He's like, if multiple people, 20, whatever it was, 30 plus people were saying they saw angels there all together, that's a testimony of, 1, 2, 3, like we talk about in the church, of several people, and that was hard for him to let go of. So there are some really bizarre firsthand accounts that we don't hear in the church, because the church is obviously going to give us the filtered best version. Let me read one of these to you guys. So according to John Whitmer, who was the official church historian in Joseph Smith's time, some converts to the new religion, when they'd have these meetings, would act like an Indian in the act of scalping, or would slide or scoot on the floor with the rapidity of a serpent. During the ordination ceremony of Harvey Whitlock as a high priest in 1831, this is that African-American guy, he have seen to have turned, a white guy, I got it backwards, turned as black as Lyman was white. His fingers were set like claws, and unable to speak, he went around the room with eyes the shape of ovals. On another occasion, one man who weighed over 200 pounds was thrown into the air by an unseen force. Another one began screaming like a panther and jumping around the room looking like a panther. So, there's a lot of those stories in the long version of this, which I'll have a link to at the end. There's other stories, like crazy stories that to us sound really bizarre in our modern world. Maybe it was Satan